My wife cheated on me with her boss, then coerced me into signing over our $400, $0 house and $150, $0 in savings, only to reveal months later that she's secretly been planning to divorce me and keep it all. Now I'm fighting in court over our stolen future. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing about a total train wreck of a marriage, but here I am. The crazy part is, it all started with something so small I almost didn't notice. A few months ago, I began sensing that something was off with Lisa, my wife. She was acting distant, avoiding my eyes, and her phone became her new best friend. She'd hide it when I entered the room, and suddenly she was always busy or tired. I brushed it off at first. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 8, and I figured everyone hits rough patches. But then I started seeing things that didn't add up. It was little stuff at first: missed calls, late nights at work, excuses about stress, or a new project. But then I noticed her phone buzzed constantly, and she'd get defensive when I asked who was calling or texting. She'd brush me off, tell me I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I was. I knew she was hiding something. The worst was when I found a pair of women's shoes in our closet that didn't belong to her or me. I confronted her about it, and she snapped at me, calling me overly suspicious and crazy. That's when I started digging more, but I didn't want to believe it. One night I came home early from work. I'd had a bad day and I wanted to surprise Lisa with dinner. When I got home, I saw her car parked in the driveway, but I also saw her phone lying on the kitchen table, screen lit up with a message from someone named Jake. I froze. My heart pounded. I picked up her phone, my hands shaking, and saw a string of texts that were definitely not innocent. They were flirtatious, suggestive, talking about meeting up, about how much they both wanted to see each other. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew immediately that Lisa had been cheating on me. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood there staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd found. When she finally came into the kitchen and saw me holding her phone, her face went pale. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I looked at her and said, "Who is Jake?" Her eyes darted away, and she tried to lie her way out of it, saying he was just that it was nothing. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes, and I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. This wasn't just a fling. She was cheating on me with her boss, a guy named Mark. The shock hit me hard. I'd always trusted her, always believed in our marriage. But now I was faced with the reality that my wife had been lying to my face for months. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the betrayal, the way she'd lied so easily, manipulated me into thinking everything was fine while she was secretly planning her next move. The worst part, she'd already coerced me into signing over our house and our savings, 400, zero in the house, and $150, $0 in our accounts, under false pretenses. She convinced me it was for our future, but it was really so she could have her own escape plan. And now she was telling me she was thinking about divorce, like I was supposed to accept her word after all that. I felt numb, like I was watching my life fall apart in slow motion. I wanted to scream, to shout, to hurt her back for all the lies, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I needed to figure out what to do next, how to stop her from walking away with everything. I started thinking about the money, about how she had manipulated me into giving her what she wanted, our home, our savings, while she was secretly plotting her escape. I felt betrayed, not just as a husband but as a man who'd been played like a fool. The anger simmered beneath the surface, but above all I felt a deep, aching sadness. I never thought I'd be here, fighting to keep what's rightfully mine against someone I once loved. After I found out about Jake, everything changed in an instant. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and my mind kept circling back to how Lisa had lied, cheated, and manipulated me into signing over everything we had. That moment in the kitchen, holding her phone, was just the beginning. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to protect what was left of my life. The next day, I started digging into her phone records and bank accounts. I had access because I'd trusted her, but now I realized I'd been blind. Her texts with Jake kept getting more explicit, and she'd been secretly meeting him at hotels. They'd been doing this for months, right under my nose. She told me she was working late, going to networking events, but I found receipts for hotel stays and dates that didn't match her story. It was like she was living a double life. While I was at work, she was with him, doing God knows what. I also discovered she'd coerced me into signing a legal document that transferred our house and savings into her name. She made it sound like it was for tax reasons or to protect the assets, but in reality she'd planned to keep it all if she decided to divorce me. She was so convincing, so manipulative, I almost didn't see it coming. But now I was furious. I realized she'd been planning this, maybe even before I signed those papers. I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid, trusting her to be honest. I remembered her bitchy attitude when I confronted her about the affair. She called me paranoid, accused me of not trusting her, and said I was just jealous. That was her go-to move: deflect, deny, lie. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had proof, and I had to decide what to do with it. I couldn't let her keep pulling the wool over my eyes. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out in front of her. That night, I sat her down in the living room. I told her I knew about Jake, about the hotel stays, the secret meetings. Her face twisted into a nasty sneer. She told me I was crazy, that I was overreacting, and that I was jealous because she was so much better than me. She spun her usual lies, claiming Jake was just a friend, that I was imagining things, that she'd never cheat on me, but I'd had enough. I pulled out the screenshots of her texts, the hotel receipts, and the bank statements. I told her I knew she'd been planning to divorce me and keep everything. Her reaction was pure venom. She told me I was a controlling, insecure asshole and that I had no right to accuse her of anything without proof. She said I was jealous of her success, that she deserved better than me, and that I was lucky she even stayed with me this long. That moment made me realize how much she hated me, how little she cared about what I felt. It was like she'd been waiting for the right moment to cut me out of her life completely. The emotional toll hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. Here I was, thinking I was building a life with someone I loved, only to find she'd been cheating and scheming behind my back. I couldn't sleep for nights, replaying everything in my head: her lies, her sneers, her manipulations. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for thinking we had a future. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I thought I knew, but now I knew better. She was a liar, a cheat, a user. The betrayal cut deep, and I was left questioning everything I'd believed about her and about us. But amidst all that chaos, I knew I couldn't stay passive. If she was planning to divorce me and keep everything, I had to fight back. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering evidence, and figuring out my options. I realized that I had to protect what was legally mine: our house, our savings, everything I'd worked for. I couldn't let her walk away with it all without a fight. I decided I'd confront her again, this time prepared, with a clear plan in mind. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I was done being the victim. Now I was ready to stand my ground. Over the next few days, I threw myself into planning my next move. I couldn't believe how quickly everything had unraveled. Lisa kept spinning her lies, trying to deny everything, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I had the receipts, the bank statements, the hotel bookings, proof she'd been sneaking around behind my back with her boss, Mark. I also found out she'd been pressuring me to sign over our house and savings, telling me it was for our future. But all along, she was planning to keep it and leave me with nothing. I decided I needed legal help fast. I contacted a lawyer specializing in divorce and property disputes. We discussed everything, and I learned I had a pretty strong case to fight for what's mine. She coerced me into signing those papers, and I had evidence of her affair. The lawyer told me I could challenge the signatures, especially if I could prove she manipulated me into signing under false pretenses. That made me feel a little better, knowing I wasn't completely screwed. Still, I had to be careful. Lisa was cunning, and I knew she'd try to spin things to her advantage. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting sweet, acting like she was the victim, even trying to tell me she was sorry and That she loved me. Yeah, right, I saw right through her. Every time she tried to guilt me or cry about how hard her life was, I just felt more disgusted. She was the one who betrayed me, who lied and cheated, and now she was playing the victim. It was disgusting. Honestly, I felt anger boil inside me. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eyes and lie so effortlessly? One night, I caught her texting someone again, probably Jake or someone else she'd been hiding. I saw that her phone was open and I read a message where she told her friend she was finally free, that she was getting everything she wanted. That was the moment I realized she'd already made up her mind. She wasn't coming back. She planned this all along. She'd been pretending to be the loving wife, but all she cared about was her own escape. I was furious. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time more directly. I told her I knew about her plans, that I had the evidence, and that I was going to fight her in court. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she wanted, especially not the house and savings that I had worked so hard for. Her face twisted with rage when I told her I'd fight her tooth and nail. She yelled at me, called me jealous, paranoid, and said I was crazy for suspecting her. She kept insisting she loved me and that I was overreacting, but I knew better. I'd seen her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost: trust, respect, my sense of security. The house that I'd helped build, the savings I'd worked years for, all of it was at risk. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, but I refused to give up. I knew I had to stand up for myself, for what was rightfully mine. I had to fight for my future, even if it meant going to war in court with someone I once loved. I was done being the victim. Now I was determined to be the man who fought back, no matter how ugly it got. So I prepared myself mentally and legally. I knew Lisa's plan was to keep everything, to spin her lies, and to make me look like the bad guy. But I had the truth on my side. I had the evidence. And I was ready to do whatever it took to get what was mine. The betrayal was deep, but I wasn't going to let her take my life without a fight. I could still feel the sting of her lies, but I also knew I had to be strong, because if I didn't stand up now, I'd lose everything I'd ever worked for. The court date finally arrived after what felt like an eternity of legal back and forth. I was nervous, sure, but more than anything, I was angry. Lisa had played me for a fool, manipulated me into signing over our house and savings, and now she wanted to walk away with everything while I was left holding the pieces. I sat in that courtroom, watching her smirk at me like she thought she had won already. She looked confident, too confident, like her lies had already sealed the deal. But I knew better. My lawyer had prepared everything. We had the evidence: texts, hotel receipts, bank statements that proved she'd been cheating and manipulating me into giving her the house. I'd also filed a challenge to the signatures, arguing that she'd coerced me into signing under false pretenses. I told her in the courtroom that I wanted to fight for my rights, that I wasn't going to let her take what I'd worked so hard for. I laid out the case clearly, with all the proof I'd gathered. The judge listened carefully, and I could see Lisa's face fall a little when I presented everything. Lisa's defense was typical. She claimed I was paranoid, that I'd misunderstood her, that she never cheated, and that I'd been controlling and unreasonable. She threw in the tears and the poor me act, trying to sway the judge, but I could see right through her. She was lying again, just like she always did, and the judge, after reviewing all the evidence, seemed to see through her facade. The courtroom was tense, but I felt a flicker of hope. I was fighting for my future, for what was rightfully mine. The lawyer argued that her signatures were invalid because she'd manipulated me into signing under false pretenses. We presented the hotel receipts and her explicit texts to Jake, proving she'd been planning her escape for months. I also about her controlling behavior, how she'd coerced me into signing those papers, and how she'd lied about her affair. It was a long, exhausting process, but I knew I had the truth on my side. Finally, after what felt like hours, the judge made her decision. She ruled that the signatures were invalid because of the coercion and deception involved. She ordered that the house and savings be returned to me, and that Lisa could not keep the property under false pretenses. Lisa's face twisted into a furious snarl when she heard the verdict. She stormed out of the courtroom, yelling that I was just jealous and that I'd ruined everything. But I didn't care. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger, relief that I finally had the law on my side, and anger that she'd tried to steal my future. The aftermath was just as chaotic. Lisa immediately started filing for divorce, claiming I'd been controlling and paranoid, trying to tarnish my reputation. But I had the evidence, and I made sure it was all documented. The court proceedings dragged on for months. She continued her lies, trying to spin her version of events, but I stayed the course. I knew I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional scars lingered. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I'd fought back against her manipulation, and I'd reclaimed what was mine. Looking back, I realize how much this whole experience changed me. I learned that trust can be broken in a heartbeat, and that some people are willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate just to get what they want. I also learned the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is against you. I still have a lot of healing to do, but I know one thing for sure: no one is going to take my life from me without a fight. If you're in a similar situation, don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Sometimes, the truth is your strongest weapon. The legal victory was a huge relief, but honestly, the emotional toll was even heavier. For months after the court decision, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every familiar place, every shared memory with Lisa now seemed tainted by betrayal. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her manipulations, her sneering face when she thought she was getting away with everything. It was like I'd been, and I didn't know how to move forward. The worst part was realizing how much she had planned to screw me over. She had coerced me into signing away our home, convincing me it was for tax reasons or protection. But all it did was give her leverage to leave with everything. I still remember the day I signed those papers, feeling the weight of her words, the way she looked at me with that fake smile. I was blind to her true intentions, and now I paid the price. I learned that trusting someone blindly can cost you everything: your money, your stability, your peace of mind. In the aftermath, I started focusing on rebuilding myself. I cut ties with her completely, blocked her number, changed my passwords, and made sure I had control over my life again. I also sought therapy. It helped, at least a little. Talking to someone who didn't know me or Lisa made me realize I wasn't alone, and that I was allowed to feel angry, hurt, and betrayed. I learned that healing isn't linear. Some days I felt strong, others I felt like I was back at square one. But I kept telling myself that I deserved better than someone who lied and cheated on me. One thing I kept thinking about was the money. That house, those savings, they were supposed to be our future. And now she was trying to take it all, claiming she had rights, even after everything she'd done. I had my lawyer review everything, and I made sure to protect my assets as much as possible. I filed for a formal settlement, and I was prepared to go to court if she tried to steal more. I realized that I needed to be proactive and not let her manipulate me again. I had to stand firm, because this wasn't just about money, it was about respect, boundaries, and reclaiming my life. Throughout all of this, I also started to see the bigger picture. I saw how Lisa's selfishness and greed had blinded her to what really mattered: trust, loyalty, and love. She was so focused on her own escape plan that she didn't care about the damage she caused. It made me angry, but it also made me more determined. I knew I'd come out of this stronger, even if it didn't feel like it right now. I learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what truly matters: your integrity, your dignity, your future. Now I'm taking it one day at a time. I've moved out, started fresh, and I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let someone like Lisa ruin me again. I want to warn anyone reading this: trust is good, but always protect yourself. Be vigilant, keep records, and don't let anyone manipulate or lie to you. You might think you know someone, but people can surprise you in the worst ways. And when they do, stand up for yourself. Fight for what's rightfully yours, because nobody else will do it for you. This whole experience has taught me a lot about resilience, about the importance of self-respect. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity. I know now that I'm stronger than I thought, and I refuse to be a victim anymore. If you're going through something similar, I hope you find the courage to stand your ground. Don't let betrayal define you. Use it as fuel to rebuild and move forward. Trust me, it's possible. You just have to be willing to fight for your life, your dignity, and your future. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, whether I wanted it to or not. I used to believe in happily ever after, in the idea that love, trust, and honesty could get you through anything. But I've learned that sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. Lisa's betrayal cut so deep because I thought she was my partner, my confidant. Instead, she turned out to be someone who would lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what she wanted, at my expense. The hardest lesson I've learned is that you can't rely on anyone but yourself. People are capable of hiding their true intentions until it's too late. That's why I now approach relationships with caution, always keeping a little guard up. Trust is important, but blind trust is dangerous. I've also come to see the importance of protecting your assets, your future, and your peace of mind. Lisa's scheme to coerce me into signing over our house and savings was a wake-up call. I won't let that happen again. I've learned to be more vigilant, more cautious, and more aware of the red flags. The emotional scars are still there, but I've learned to live with them. I no longer wake up feeling numb or devastated. I wake up determined. I focus on rebuilding my self-esteem, my financial stability, and my mental health. I'm not perfect, and I still have days when I feel overwhelmed or angry, but I'm moving forward. I've started dating again cautiously, and I've come to appreciate the value of honesty and integrity in relationships. One thing I want anyone reading this to take away is that betrayal hurts badly, but it doesn't have to define you. You can come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more resilient. It's okay to feel broken for a while, but don't let that pain consume you. Seek help if you need it, lean on friends or family, and most importantly, believe in your worth. You are stronger than the lies someone else might tell you. Finally, I want to say that I don't hold any resentment toward Lisa anymore. At least, not the kind that eats you up inside. I forgive her because I realize that holding onto hatred only hurts me. What I do hold onto is the lesson that I deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty. I deserve to be with someone who values me for who I am, not someone who manipulates or cheats behind my back. This experience has taught me more than I ever expected about trust, betrayal, and resilience. It's been the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but it's also been the most revealing. I've found a new sense of strength I didn't know I had, and I want anyone out there who's going through something similar to know, you're not alone. Keep fighting, keep believing in yourself, and remember that your worth isn't defined by someone else's lies. You can rebuild, you can recover, and you can come out of this stronger than ever.